Hey guys, Ken Maxfield, i.e. the Hide Guy. I am the president of the Maxfield Report, and here is your week-ending market recap for the week ended March the 29th. The week started off with Packers offering list much more populated. In fact, there were even some additional selections added by some of the Packers. Asking prices were steady by some. Most of the Packers are asking at least $1 down. That would allow them to move their asking prices closer to where they traded at towards the end of last week, as there was no doubt there was lower prices being taken. Week started out with interest being a little bit lackluster, for lack of a better word. As the week progressed, bids did pick up a little bit. There was numerous reports of agents of the Packers pushing customers for voluminous type bids, shipments that could go much earlier than what was being advertised on offer list. And at the end of the day, it really appears as if the Packers were starting to show a little bit of panic last week. That actually carried over from the end of last week, to be honest with you. Number of rumors accusing some of the Packers of trading at levels well below where they're advertising they're trading at. And in fact, even though our price guide reflects lower prices on Friday than the week prior, there are lots of unconfirmed rumors of trading at even levels lower than what's being reported on our price guide. As far as the number of hides exchanging hands last week, we would say it was a moderate number. Again, the popular opinion of the trade, and myself as well, is when you're taking these lower levels, you certainly want to get volume attached to that. It doesn't do you any good to take less money for 3 or 6 containers. So knowing that lower money is being done, we believe there's some volumes attached. I'm not convinced that there was a week's worth of production sold, but next Thursday, I wouldn't be shocked to see an export report that was, somewhere in the neighborhood of sales of maybe combined sales, mind you, of, 550. That's just kind of the feel it had. On the cowhides, the week started off with producers offering at steady levels. As the week progressed, the downward momentum in the big packer market started to spill into the cowhide market. Also, you have a situation where the number of cows being harvested the last 3 weeks are reflecting some of the highest levels of the year. Many of the people who harvest cows were running 5 and 5.25 days. Most of this year so far bumped it up to a full 6 days worth of production, even some rumblings of some people harvesting on a Sunday. That said, the added volume, the pressure in the big packer market, that resulted in cows trading lower, even native dairy cows, which had been pretty rock solid. There's even, reports of those trading down $1 from their highest levels. So as far as how many cows were sold, kind of the same read. I should say I have the same read as in the big packer market. There was business concluded, but I'm not confident that they were able to sell a week's worth of production. As far as the harvest this past week, the number came in at 614,000 head. That compares to 631 the week prior. I know in our commentary we'd been saying we would think we were going to see a number very similar to last week. The reason that number tailed off a little bit is Packers were pushing to buy live cattle. That pushed asking prices higher. They had a difficult time managing their box prices and keeping them steady. So you had, both factors working against profitability. Now, keep in mind, the Packers' profits last week, by those who like to count the Packers' money, were anywhere north of $100 to $150 a head. So those margins pulled back a little bit this week, and that's why you saw the harvest dip from 631 to 614. Overall, though, we are 44,000 ahead of last year. That is with one less day of harvest, so we are about 0.5% higher than a year ago. And we continue to lean towards the opinion we are going to see that number by the end of the year being at probably closer to 1.5% higher than a year ago. So the export report came out Thursday as expected, and we were calling for our guess was about 600,000 in combined sales. We had whole cattle hide sales of 400,000. That's about 6% higher than the week prior. It's 24% higher than the last 4 weeks. It was much needed because sales have been dismal, and good for the Packers and the processors that they were able to get those done. As far as a comparison for the quarter, it's about 17% higher than the weekly average for the quarter. So better, but I'm very fond of the saying, one float doesn't necessarily make a parade. As far as sales of wet blue, they were 200,000. That's 39% higher than the week prior, 61% higher than the 4-week prior average. For the quarter, it's about 53% higher. Again, great week of sales at 200,000. As I've said to you before in previous video blogs and also in my commentary, our weekly production for wet blue, our guess is somewhere around 150 to 165,000. So obviously a very good week. They're able to liquidate inventory, but I still think there's plenty of wet blue for sale out there as well. So going around and checking around the globe quick here, our friends from Europe report no change in the situation. They have numerous attempts by people to bid prices substantially lower. Sellers, reluctant to take less money. I think they're doing it behind the scenes. Of course, they don't want it advertised, especially a lot of pressure on bull hides. There's a lot of unsold inventory in Europe, and there's no doubt that we're going to have to see those prices follow that U.S. market, and I look for those prices to continue to move lower as we go forward. Down in Brazil, our sources down there tell us that the fresh hides, we put down one re-ice. That is for a production that's selected. All of the less desirables are taken out of that mix. If you can take a straight run, some people have told me you can almost name your price on that, obviously well below the one re-ice. So still no change on that. On the wet blue, of course, producers continue to hold their asking prices steady. The widespread speculation, there still continues to be lots of product available. If you can buy volume, you can take it quick. My guys are telling me 55 cents. There's unconfirmed reports of even less than that, but we cannot confirm that. But just to give you an idea where that's at. Over in Australia, just a similar situation. Harvest levels there running a little higher than a year ago. Much of the eastern part of the country continues to see dry weather, so that's attributing to the higher than normal numbers for this time of year. I understand by some of our sources that it's supposed to be a little bit wetter on that eastern side of the country. That should slow the number of cattle coming to market, so we'll hopefully see slaughter levels pull back to even keel with last year. That said, those selling hides are encountering the same difficulties as those in the States. It's tough to get enough demand because supply continues to overrun it. So what do we think for next week? We would not be shocked. In fact, we expect offer lists to be as large as last week, maybe even possibly a little larger, especially in the States. There's not been enough hides sold. As far as asking prices, obviously, I believe they should be lowering their prices in order to bring asking prices closer to where actual trading levels are taking place. So this market remains under pressure. Supply continues to outpace demand, and it's likely a situation where your first sale is going to continue to be your best sale. So that's it for now. Ken Maxfield, the Hide Guy. Check out my website, www.themaxfieldreport.com. I offer free 14-day trials, so check that out. Until next week, talk to you soon.